back. WNSTers were the Washington Capitals in the Stanley Cup Finals this year. I welcome in a guy who was my first hockey coach, my first hockey mentor, the first guy I ever walked into with a notebook that looks just like the one I'm holding here on the screen. And I was all of 15 years old asking Gene Ubriaco questions after Baltimore Skipjack game down at what is now the Royal Farms Arena. We welcome him in. He has been out in Chicago doing it for a quarter of a century as the longtime president and executive general manager of the Chicago Wolves. And back in Baltimore where you made a life, Gene Ubriaco, where we're celebrating a hockey championship and a Stanley Cup parade. Baltimore feels a part of that. You did your job well 40 years ago, Gino.
Well, you're doing a great job yourself. My God, you. But I'll tell you, you were an eager beaver right from day one. So.
Well, I loved hockey. I loved hockey, and you wanted to teach me hockey.
You know what's really amazing is that you don't realize it, but the business you're in is no different than being a hockey player. Because in the off seasons, when I was playing in the National Hockey League, and I'd go home to my hometown, I would be on radio and television once in a while, and I had a weekend in sports program one time, and then I realized, I said, you know what am I doing getting into the same kind of business? You're only as good as your last broadcast. and here I am in hockey, and you're only as good as your last game. You know, and so it's very similar, and obviously not the athletic or the physical side of it, but I'm saying you're willing to put yourself out there. You're willing to go out and, you know, and like I said, my goodness, you're seeing it happen all over the time. You have one bad broadcast and you say the wrong thing once and you're gone. Or someone buys the station, like that often happens, right? They changed all the staff. So I'm saying you're a brave young man. You're a brave young man of 15, and you're a brave young man still. Because, well, I don't know how old you are.
I'll be 50 this year, by the way, so I'm not 15 anymore.
Yeah, but you're still young. I got clipboards older than you.
I'm sure you do. There's no doubt about that. Gene Ubriaco is our guest. You say you're only as good as your last game. Well, the Caps are pretty good right now, right? I mean, this is where it's at, and they beat your buddy Phil Esposito down in Tampa, and then did a number out in Las Vegas on their old guy George McVie, as well as Marc-Andre Fleury. Every year we say, well, it was a special run and it was a great team. Boy, we've waited a long time around here for this. Going back to your era where you came in here with hockey and the Caps were trying to make a go of it. Hockey was trying to make a go of it in this area. It still is, quite frankly, right?
You know what? Ever since I started coaching in the United States, because I did all my coaching in the States, and we not only have to coach the game, we have to sell the game. Because we really, in every market that we were there, we had to make sure that people enjoyed the game, and it was important, obviously, to get people to come. So I can remember when I first went into Baltimore in 1978, and there was a team, of course, the Baltimore Clippers, in the 60s. And we came back in there in 78 or 77, I believe. And I can remember going down the street. I went to a tailor. I was either buying a suit or a sports jacket, and he was like about 2 blocks from the Civic Arena. Now the Royal Farms, right? And I said to him, and he asked me what I did, and I said I'm with the hockey team, the Baltimore Clippers. And he said, we have a hockey team here. And we were like 2 blocks away from the Civic Center. So, I've learned over time that, if you're going to be in advertising, don't take anything for granted. You may think people know about you or they know about our game, but we in hockey just kept going, kept working at it. We're always looked down as the 4th sport. Well, we're moving up into the 3rd sport, I'd say, in this country. And I think it's about time because we've been working really hard at it to sell this game. 1980 and Herb Brooks certainly made a dent in what but it was still a dent. We had to go from there, but it really helped. God bless Herb Brooks.
Well,
and the USA team in 1980.
Well, when it comes to where we are in this market in Baltimore and Washington, and you're very familiar with it. I mean, you raised a family here, not a hockey market in Baltimore. And the Caps had that period, when you were coaching, where they had Gartner and Scott Stevens and had drafted Bobby Carpenter and David Poyle was in there and Brian Murray, and there was some hope, right? You went off to Pittsburgh and did your thing. It really is amazing 30 years later that as over the last 15 years, especially with Ovechkin, the way it's caught on here and people are inspired by it, it does take something like this. This is an earthquake, right? This is going to change hockey in our area for the next 10 or 15 years, I believe.
No question. Kids will all want to play. Obviously, we got more Americans playing hockey now than ever, and of course, it's worth the play. It's comparable in all the salaries and all the major leagues now. The players do very, very well. You can get yourself educated and then give it a go at hockey in pro sports. So we didn't have all that. Let's face it, in the 60s and 67, I think most hockey players, they thought we were priests. We took a vow of poverty, I think. Because, I can recall in 67, my first contract, I was playing for $13,000. And after that, and Stan Mikita, I remember when we played with the Blackhawks, I think he's making 80. And then when Bobby Hull wanted to make it get up to 100,000, they wouldn't sign him, and he jumped over to the World Hockey League. So we've come a long ways, but I like that. Who was that firm used to be on Wall Street? You earn your tradition.
Right. Well, the NHL.
We've earned our way.
Well, and it's earned its way, I think, with the excitement level of the game, right? I mean,
exactly.
you played it as a kid. You've been selling it your whole life. You sold it in the Chicago suburbs the last 25 years, including here. I always you kid around about the song, the good old hockey game's the best game you can name, right? I think for a lot of people here, and Gene, in Baltimore, baseball was always king. The Orioles have kind of screwed this up the last 25 years with Angelos here in the ownership, that over the last 6 weeks, so many people have watched hockey who may have only, watched it at a cursory level, but got engaged and they bought into the soap opera and into the storyline. And I think they're amazed by what a great game it is. And in the modern era, how television makes it better than it ever was 30 years ago.
No question. The whole picture is being told now. From the beginning to the end. You got a lot of stories that are out there. Ovechkin is obviously going to be like the Bobby Hull in Chicago. He's made that market, and you need someone like that, and he's done it. And I think that everybody was impressed with him, the way he handled the after the game ceremonies. I mean, that was truly a well documented experience for everybody that witnessed it. That to see a man after 12, 13 years, he finally gets the cup, and boy, did he express it. And I think that was wonderful.
He's a player, isn't he? I mean, you coached Lemieux early in his career.
Yes,
it's a whole different thing to be Trotz and acquire him at 30 than it is to acquire Lemieux at 20, as you did, right?
Exactly. People don't realize Mario, at least I'll tell you about Ovechkin. He made the playoffs about every year that he was there, right? They didn't last long, but he was there. Mario, it took him about 4 years to make the playoffs because the team took a long time. And the market in Pittsburgh wasn't great. I mean, we had to work hard to get that going, and thank God for Mario. They might almost say it was a blessing they never got paid, or they couldn't pay him. And then they owed him so much money that he bought into the team. And you talk about a Moses, and Mario Lemieux was a Moses in Pittsburgh because of him, Pittsburgh is a great hockey market, outstanding. And I think Ovechkin is going to do the same thing for Washington. And that's sometimes what it takes. when you're kind of relatively a new sport in a country and you're fourth, fifth, or wherever, and it's a baseball country, a football country, it takes time. And but hockey players were ambitious and aggressive. We just keep pounding away, and eventually we get there.
Gene Ubriaco has been my friend for 35 years. Began as the first coach of the Baltimore Skipjacks that I covered. Never told you this, but I used to go down to the green and gold games with Kim Spencer and Jerry Cha-Cha and Henry Taylor and Warren Young and those guys. When you brought those guys in here as well, all these years later, for you to have worked at a level with players that were sort of in between, right, in Chicago and trying to get guys up, you must have a great, I think, affinity for the Devontae Smith-Pellys and the guys that are the third and fourth liners that come in that win you a championship, the Brett Connolly's, because they were a big, big part of this run.
Is it ever fun to be a part of someone's success? It's, you know what I mean? Our thing here with the Wolves, and I learned a long time ago, you want to make every player that comes to you better. You want to try to help him to get to his dream. I mean, you can't lose that way. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to win every hockey game. But I'm telling you, when you try to move people and get them where they want to go and try to be, they're going up the path, and if you're a guy coming down the path, is it ever nice for you to meet that guy going up? And it's ever nice if you can help him and tell him what he has to do to get up the path and what it's going to take. And I think I stay in touch with pretty well most of the players that I coach. I think I told you that I didn't coach players. I coached a lot of friends, people that became my friends, and a lot of them went up and did well in the game. Because that's the way I look at it. It's a lifestyle. It's something, everybody says you don't worry about the end, worry about the journey. Well, I've had a great journey thinking about players on their journey and trying to get them where they want to be. And, a lot of them didn't get to the top, still friends, but gave it all they had, and that's what it takes. And the ones that did get there, God bless them. It's very nice for them and their family.
Well, Barry Trotz is one of those guys that you and I share a relationship with, and you were the first guy when up in the booth when he was coaching those games with Kenny Albert, and I was sitting in for you on the nights when I did it with Kenny. First time
That's
in,
right.
and I talked to Dougie McLean about it this week too, Gene. That was not a very glamorous job,
No.
for you and trying to run and sell tickets and babysit young men and make them better and sleep with the bus driver and the bus breaks down. You've given me all those stories. Trotz dealt with all that stuff as a young coach here with a team that, quite frankly, was lame duck and was about to move to Portland, Maine.
No, you know what? Listen, the toughest league you ever coach in is the first pro league that the players play in, the lowest pro league. Because let me tell you, is that ever difficult when you have a youngster that comes to you who's played hockey until he's 20, maybe started at 5 years old, and then you have to tell him he can't play on your East Coast Hockey League team? That is difficult. Because after that, he's going home. He's going back. He's going back to school, which I always acted like a guidance counselor. And I found that, I can remember one player who played for me wasn't good enough to play in the East Coast League or was the American League, I believe. He came up from junior and played in the American League, and he wasn't doing too well. But I knew he was a great student, and I just told him, I said, hockey may not be for you. Go back to school, I said, because you know what? You're a smart young man. Well, you know what? Years later, his dad ran into me and talked to me, and he said, you gave my son the best advice. He's a dentist today. He said, and when you told him what was best for him, he went on to be a dentist. And I want to thank you very much. Well, that meant the world to me. Because I think that, like I said, it's better to be a guidance counselor than be a guy that, after me, you come first. There's a lot of people in the game like that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you played the game at a high level, and you were a bit of a tweener guy. You know, you were a guy that was always trying to get to the National League, and you know we're on the cusp, quite frankly, and the Oakland Seals and all that stuff. I mean, you had a lot of heartbreak as a player, right? You were told you weren't good enough for the NHL, and that was a difficult thing to hear. It probably made you a much more empathetic coach, right?
Definitely. Let me tell you, you got to handle rejection, man. That's the main part of the. I tell you what, though, I spent 2 years in sales, and let me tell you, you got to handle rejection there. and I'm telling you, I have so much respect. I think I learned more about coaching by going into sales, because we would have a sales meeting, and how many doors did you knock on, how many phone calls did you make, and I always moved that on to the players and say how many shots on goal you had. In fact, I treated everybody like they were a salesman for me, and I went through a 10-game plan with players. How many shots do you think you're going to get in 10 games? The guy would say, "Well, I'll get 60, 70." I'd say, "Well, let's see if you can get 30." You know, and work that way. But the point is, try to get everybody better. That's the key, and handle rejection as a coach. And then I've got to tell you though, Nestor, the guys that are winning, and Barry Trotz certainly is one of them, have had a lot of rejection. They've had a lot of experience. And let me tell you, the most important part of the game today is behind the bench during the game. And there's only one place to get that experience, and that's behind the bench. There's no coaching schools for behind the bench. You learn it. You live with it. You trial and error. But if you notice the Joe Quenvilles and some of the people that have won the Cup lately, it's guys that have been around. They know when to go to 3 lines, go with 4 lines. Sure, everybody would love to go 4 lines and just roll them over and keep all the players happy. But let me tell you, there are times in the game you can't do that. But it takes the person with experience to know when he's got to shorten the bench. And I think Barry Trotz, he won the series. To me, he won the series when it was the 3rd game, when he lost his best centerman. And he had to go down to 3 centermen. And those 3 centermen outplayed the big 4 centermen. And I think that was a crucial game. I think it made the Washington Capitals see what they could do. They were undermanned. They were under pressure. And they ended up winning that game. And from that game on, they breathed, actually, when you think about it. And finally, Vegas, the pressure got to them. And instead of Vegas playing on with the house money, because they're from Vegas, Barry Trotz was playing with the house money. And he made good use of it.
Gene Ubriaco is our guest. He was the first coach of the Baltimore Skipjacks, as well as a member of the Clippers, and also a lifer Timonium guy, and his son Gene Jr., of course, coaching lacrosse here locally as well, and has been out in Chicago with the Wolves for many, many years. I was going to have you on last week, and I said, you know what, Gino, let's just wait for the Caps to win the Cup, and we'll talk about it after the Caps win the Cup. And you said, well, I really like your confidence. I had a level of confidence in these guys. I really did.
I love that. I thought that was really, I love that. You said they were going to win, and let me tell you, that next game obviously was huge, and they win it, and that was it. And the 4th, of course, the 5th game, that was it. I mean, but to me, the turning point of the series was the 3rd game, when they realized what it's going to take. They have to go all out. Ovechkin, everybody on that team, from coaches on, hey, if we can win that game, there's no reason we can't win the next 3, and they did.
Gene, always a pleasure to catch up with you. Tell everybody about life out in Chicago for you and the Wolves and what you're doing, because people want to catch up with you. I know that when I sat out at Michael's Cafe in Timonium with you 2 weeks ago, we had people bringing programs, stopping by, bringing trinkets, long-lost friends dropping by. It was quite a little visit here in the middle of the Stanley Cup Finals for you, but you're staying busy out there at the ripe young age of 80, right?
Oh, God, yeah. I just was on the ice this morning. I'm a very lucky guy. We have a hockey school for deaf boys that started with Stan Mikita, and it's 45 years old. And this was our 45th year. And I can't tell you right now, I go to that hockey school, all the boys that are coaching the team are former students that were deaf. Most of our directors run the school are deaf, former players. And like I said, I'm a lucky guy because I've been around a lot of great people. I've been fortunate to be around a lot of, these boys are now running their own school and they're deaf. And you know what? I just realized we don't have a school for referees. And next year we're going to be implementing that in our hockey camp for deaf boys. We're going to have a referee school for deaf boys.
I don't want to make a joke about it, but that would be the greatest referee in the world is a deaf referee, right?
Isn't that the truth?
I said perfect,
That's
right? They don't have to hear any of the gump. They call it the way they see it, and that's it.
Yeah. Then they don't have to listen to coaches like me hollering at them, right? And they'd be excellent. And these guys, let me tell you, some of these kids are so great. Let me tell you, I actually told some of the parents, we have a parents meeting before we start, that I in a lot of ways, I know we never called it a handicap. It was just an unfortunate situation. It was never a handicap. We don't even think of it as a handicap. And that I told those parents, sometimes I envy you because I see the love between you and your boys. And I don't think you could ever come close to that. When I see with these deaf people that have deaf children, how close they are and how lovingly they are. So that's really what it's all about.
Gino, love you, buddy. Take care. We're Stanley Cup champions around here. Come on out now. When we bring the cup here, we'll share it with you.
Remember, we're with Vegas. We're an affiliate.
So the wrong guys won.
Them a lot.
I keep forgetting we're bad guys. We were the bad guys in this thing here. Yeah, you signed up with Vegas.
Bad guy.
Somebody had to win. Somebody had to lose. I'm just glad it was us for once.
No losers in the Stanley Cup final. Let me tell you.
Gene, take care of yourself. Always great to visit with you, my friend.
All right, God bless. Bye-bye.
Gene Ubriaco. You can find him. Google up about the Oakland Seals. He'll teach you about hockey. He founded, really, the new version of the Baltimore Clippers and then the Skipjacks that went on to be coached by Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz was the last coach of the Skipjacks. Gene Ubriaco was the first coach of the Baltimore Skipjacks, and I'm visiting with all of my old friends, rocking the red, talking about the time that I lifted the Stanley Cup over my head with Barry Trotz, and that happened in Vegas on Thursday night. I swear to God, I got pictures. Oh, we'll be bringing the Stanley Cup up to Baltimore at some point. Stay tuned for all of that. You can find me out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. The buyatoyota.com audio vault is there 24 hours a day. From anywhere in the world, you can listen when you want, where you want, how you want, to what you want. It's the way we do it in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. Our morning newspaper ships at 7 a.m. every morning. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. That's $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. Also, including the Maryland Jockey Club and the Laurel entries for the weekend. They got a beautiful sports bar down in Laurel now. They're getting ready to expand and make it bigger and better. Get down there and see the ponies this weekend, And, of course, on the front of our website at WNST.net, the Laurel entries this week. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.